September 8th.
That's our next board meeting?
Right.
Making these changes and things, more letters of review before we make a decision. I'm all for change.
I'm certainly more comfortable waiting so we can have a legal opinion on that. I will say this, if we get that particular opinion and we can work it in with ample notice to the community, I would certainly entertain having a special meeting if you felt that was necessary prior to the 8th, if you wanted to get started before the 8th. So that's an option we have depending on when the official legal. I see that you don't really like that option, but I'm just putting it out there. So at any rate, anybody else? All right. So are you saying that we're tabling this as well? Correct. All right. Ten point four, may I have a motion, please?
Madam President, I move that we appoint Tom Hughes for GRPS to serve as facility maintenance supervisor, as recommended.
It's been moved by trustee Williams with support by trustee Gurka. Comments or questions? Trustee Gurka?
Madam President, the only problem I have with making this appointment tonight is that we're waiting for clarification on the costs from the SOBI relationship. And if that in fact is not included in the budget, then we don't have money to move forward. If it's $90,000.
Certainly not. That's correct. Any other comments? Trustee McMahon?
The only other thing is that we've all, within both development and strategic plan, there's a much larger group than us, and then further discussions that we've acknowledged that without a person in that capacity, we're losing opportunity of preventive maintenance, greater unification of services, and cutting down on overtime. As long as we can account for it with the budget, that I believe we need to move forward on it, because I think we're losing more money by the day he's not here than if he appoints somebody. And we've gone through the interview process. We really believe we have a qualified candidate.
Other comments?
Start date B if we approve this evening.
Mr. Losh, would you like to comment on that? Mr. New was planning to be here with his support team from GRBS, but they are stuck in the mess on Highway 23. And so they are still trying to make it here, but it's doubtful, depending on how long our meeting goes. Start date, I know they wanted to do it ASAP.
Yes, Mr. New is in a position, and so is GRBS, to start within a matter of days of the board's approval for this position. The question regarding the budget is an excellent concern. I was the one that prepared the budget and put it in the line item account within the maintenance budget. And unless those dollars have been removed today sometime, they are there, so.
And I understand that those dollars are there. We're just waiting for clarification that another expense is included within the budget.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, Ron? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I will say that I share Trustee Gurka's concern about, there's no question that the supervisor salary, and I believe one of another maintenance worker, was in the facilities budget. That's not in question. What is in question, however, is where that $93,000 is and where we're going to provide for that in the budget, and it hits 2 fiscal years. The other thing we don't know is how that impacts our DEP, and my understanding is we don't have that information yet. It hasn't been clarified. So those are the questions that were asked. Those are the questions that need to be answered, at least in my mind, and I'm only speaking for myself right now. My other concern is this. We hired a company to clean our buildings, and we really haven't received what I believe is solid data on how well that particular company is doing. So I'd really like to see a little more reporting on that before we decide to go ahead with a supervisor from that same company. I'm not saying that I won't support that, but what I am saying is I would like some additional information. I need to know that what we've already allocated is being well spent, and that the building and the district's being well cared for. So those are my concerns.
This is definitely also
That's at the pleasure of the board. If you want, there's a motion on the table, we can vote on that motion, or we. Trustee McMahon?
I could agree with the statement you just said, the verification of quality of an existing vendor before expanding services. My only question is, we define what we need, or who's going to bat, whether it be a building principal, the superintendent, the finance director, so that we get that information properly here, that we can make a decision next week, and that we address it and we actually get an answer from somebody who is qualified.
So I believe that GRBS is planning to present to the full board early September. Is it early September?
We were waiting on the go-ahead from performance.
So they could be here potentially on the 8th for an overview of, that's from an overview from them on the 8th, and then make a decision on this. Well, for me, that's one piece of the puzzle. The larger piece of the puzzle is explanation of accounting for some money that's already been spent. I guess explanation of accounting is not a good term. How are we balancing with money that we've already spent today? So I agree, and my question is, since we have a motion on the table, is so at what point are we moving on? And can we take a decision, so now we're talking about pushing this through until the end of September? Because if we don't make a decision today, it will be a decision in a month. Because we couldn't have a presentation and make a decision about the same thing at the same meeting. So that would push us back for a month. It does lend itself to some other concerns less than what we need to. Correct, because I also agree with Trustee McMahon's point that there are expenses going on that need, that this position is designed to start to curtail. I also wonder about the beginning of the school year aspect. And so,
One of the pieces that is of concern to you are the budget implications of Mr. Sobey's invoices. And I don't want to put Joanne on the spot necessarily, but I know that's something that she and I discussed at some length last week. And I do know that she has looked at some of those things, so I want to make sure if she's not prepared to speak to any of that in any detail tonight, that's absolutely fine. However, if she has information that would be helpful in this discussion, I would welcome her to the topic.
At this point, I'm not going through the numbers to date. I did send a memo out earlier this week, which basically outlines what I've been able to identify, which is going to, the numbers which are going to affect our 2014 thousand, for teaching professional business services. To date, we're looking at $25,268. And to date, for schooling and municipal advisory services, for this upcoming fiscal year, we're currently sitting at the 32,000 that we're looking at. I'm confident with what I've been able to pull together. We have enough within the budget to cover those expenses. The invoices that I don't have listed here, those belong to prior year, so that's basically a said and done thing. There's nothing that we can do to change that. It's going forward, taking these expenses into account and anything that we would incur from this point on going forward. So if we're not incurring, and I'm confident that there's enough in the budget to cover this, and I think there's a little bit more in here, but I don't know exactly how much at this point. So that's what we're concerned about. I know that we're fine with what I've identified so far.
In terms of the impact to the prior fiscal year, I know that you've had some conversations with Tom Tebow regarding the prior year impact invoices, which was, there was one on 6/11, and so that would be the invoice about which we're speaking, I believe. So the question for the board would be, how does that impact then what may come out in the final audit? And I know that Tom Tebow was tracking all of the additional expenses that came through that he had not anticipated from all kinds of places, not just the one vendor. And then also looking at the things that didn't cost as much as he had anticipated and weighing the balance between the two.
That I do not have a handle on at this point.
Okay.
We spoke about that briefly, but there are a number of things that are still coming into play with that picture, so I don't have a clear picture as to where we stand in that.
But in terms of covering this year's expenses with this year's budget, you're confident that that is there?
Good. Trustee Jaworski. But that's only good if our starting number is good. Correct?
Correct.
Well, and I guess I'm confused about where that fits into zero-based budgeting. I mean, that had to have been in our budget somewhere. So I guess I'm confused by that. I apologize. If I'm supposed to know the answer to that, I don't. So and that's kind of the information that I'm looking for. If the money's in the budget, it's something that's not tangible, at least to me, which means that before I decide to spend money, or we as a board rather decide to spend money in another area, I really need to know what's left or where it's at. Does that make sense? That's my thought. Go ahead, Trustee Lombard.
Well, we had talked about knowing exactly what line items that money was coming from.
Correct.
For the previous and for this year.
Correct.
If it's budgeted in the budget, there should be a line item that states. And I guess I need to know what line item that's coming from. Is it coming from one where we're now filling positions? And if we fill those positions, what is it going to offset? Or will it then go over budget by the time the end of the year comes? And then also, basically where it fits in everywhere. Is it already included? Is it in the DEP? And those questions we don't know. And if we're going to table these items that require new contracts, I mean, we have 10.5 and 10.6. If we're going to go down the list, we should, if we're going to do for one, we should do, until we have those answers, we should table all of that until we have definite answers. Where are these line items coming? It's not that difficult to say, okay, you know, that's always being paid out of this line item in the budget.
Okay. And we did ask administration to provide us where was put in, as presented cost, and it was X amount more, X amount less, or no, it was not put in.
With doing a zero-based budget and basically wiping out and starting from fresh, it should be in there, and you should be able to say, okay, it's line item number, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
This
X
is
amount
where
of
it's
dollars.
coming from, you know, and if it's part of the business office and the restructure, then we should know what line items. I don't understand, it really shouldn't be that difficult to say, okay, this is where his money's coming from.
Well, and when you're looking at, a budget presentation and the idea is there's nowhere else in the budget for certain things to come from that you
Right.
wanna offset, you have to know where those dollars will be.
The money regarding.
Yes, the money goes, trustee, yeah.
I concur with what you're saying there. I just went back to the point where we talked about specifically in 10.4 was if we need to have some type of assessment of continuity and quality of work, do we as a board want to let the vendor presentation speak for itself with discussion, or do we want to assign an opinion within the organization ourselves, which is either our building principals or something, to make a statement with regards to their opinion of the matter, that we have something quantitative. If we're gonna go the due diligence of, are we deficient or not, at least why are we deficient or not?
With the company,
Yes.
so, do we have any of that information gathered? And my understanding is to you at performance, so that's kind of information I'm looking for.
Inside input other than that.
Okay, so it would have to be.
So if David, if trustee McFan would like that included, or if we as a board would like that included, then we need to.
I would like all perspectives included. I mean, I don't know how we can make that decision if we don't know how it's going right now. And not only that, we don't want to set up our new supervisor for failure, right? So,
So I guess that's what I was just looking for. We
I
need to take it
understand.
directly to somebody.
thank you for clarifying. So that's-
The other, on that particular point,
Is there a contract that we should be looking at for the supervisor and having had that been reviewed by legal? Okay, so let's get that. Okay. So, that looks clear, we're tabling that as well. And 10.5. 10.5.
Madam President, I move that we appoint Caitlin Moffett to the position of Coordinator for Athletics and Sports Development as recommended. Moved by trustee Jaworski with support by trustee Gurka. Comments?
I think with the comparable due diligence, I think we've already satisfied that. I am inclined to go with this motion.
Well, I want you all to know up front that I have to abstain from this particular vote, should it go to a vote because of a personal relationship with the. Trustee Gurka?
Presentation of this portion of the budget. Do we have anything else? Should we do this as well?
Pleasure of the board.
I suppose if we're being consistent, we're verifying that number to come to agreement with our DEP. Once we have that, we can make our decision. I can support that.
And we would also want this non-affiliate contract reviewed by the board, by council.
Absolutely. Thank you. 10.6.
Madam President, I move that we appoint Kevin Upton to the position of Director of Curriculum and Instruction pending successful contract negotiations as recommended.
Support. It's been moved by trustee Williams with support by trustee Mead. Comments or questions?
I would like to point out that Mr. Upton is in the audience, front row tonight.
So, I know that we have been tabling our motion that we move forward. I do think that this, as we're moving into the fall, and we're moving into our season of testing and season of curriculum and instruction, that I would be concerned that, not moving forward with this at this time, is a little bit harmful or a lot harmful, could be detrimental in terms of our ability to do the things that the interview committee decided that the candidate would be able to do for the district moving forward, and we also would erode a possible, a potential to, and people, the timing is bad, I think, for not moving forward and having to look at selecting another candidate or doing something different or hoping that the candidate meets or holds it, at this point. So, because of the timing, I'm suggesting that we move forward.
I also think we should move forward in the idea of the school starting this year and the imperative of starting some of these programs and some grants and whatnot. So I think it would be important to go ahead with this one. This one being an exception to the other two.
Trustee?
So where would that leave us as a board with the contract negotiation piece? If we have approved this, then where would we stand afterward?
So we have an approved non-affiliate administrator contract from council
Okay.
that we use as the template.
Okay.
And we have vetted this through a committee and reduced the candidacy and found individuals qualified, so I agree with our colleagues.
So I would like to say, I also am in agreement with that. I think that this is a critical piece, and to not have this position be able to hit the ground running with so much work to be done in this area would be detrimental.
I'm sorry, I cannot agree. We have decided to do all the other ones. If we need to hold a special meeting next week, when we do have numbers, we asked for these numbers last week on Wednesday. I think it's very critical that we get these numbers before we move forward on any decisions. If we're going to table one, we have to look at all of them equally. You know, if we have to have a special meeting next week.
So I think some of the others, at least in my mind, was a question of what we were going to do and if we were going to fill it moving forward. So are we assuming that I guess the pending members will decide if we're going to fill it? Is that?
No,
waiting to see?
we need to know where the money is coming from that we have spent already. In my opinion, before we consider any more new contracts or anything, we set up guidelines that we want to start to follow. And I have a hard time tabling all these others and not following and being consistent in all of them. If we don't have the data, how can we move forward and make these decisions?
For me, it's related to this one relates to kids and instruction and curriculum. So for me, this one's a different position.
But I agree, this is the one of, we already have the information, the other ones we're gathering more financial information. This is different in my opinion.
Trustee McMahon?
I agree with Ms. Newland in the fact that this is, the other items are new positions. This is a replacement position. It's well within, you've got to count it within the budget, and it's the fact is, even if other numbers come up, we need this position. We will have to make adjustments in some other capacity.
We've had an auditor, that's not a new position. We've had a facilities maintenance person, that's just been kind of left on the wayside for several years. I'm looking at it as, it's not numbers of these new positions, it's numbers of money we've already spent, we don't know where it's coming from. If we can have simple information that states from these line items, this is where this money is coming from, and it's already been allocated in the DEP and the budget, and we know where those numbers are, I'm good with it. But if we can't do it if we cannot figure that out, how can we table one where it's our auditor, where we need the audit done? You know, how can we go, you know, that's what I'm looking at.
But I just think our timing is different in terms of our candidate.
And all opinions are respected. Trustee, Lewin?
I also think it's imperative at this time for it to be considered as also a revenue position as far as grants and other programming, that it does make a difference if in fact it was not implemented at a certain point in time for the student's school year. I think it's a little different than some of the other positions that this could be seen as a revenue for grants.
Was there something happening in September?
Trustee Berger?
I'm torn because we need curriculum on board. It's very important for the structure of our staff, our students, to get the quality education that we wish to provide. But again, I'm sitting up here and not knowing what numbers we have to pay our staff and our administration are accurate numbers, not only with the new budget going forward, but this new day, we're not even sure our starting figure is perfectly accurate. So we may have less to start with going forward. So I'm torn. It's a position we need to fill. It was an existing position. I just want to be able to make sure that we can cover all of our salaries and not go into a larger deficit.
But I just would caution us not to be foolish. We all know that we have to be fiscally responsible. We have to look at where we need to amend our budget and what we need to do. I would just caution us not to be foolish, not fill positions that are going to impact our curriculum, our structure, and our curriculum moving forward. And if the committee, in fact, vetted, candidate they thought would be able to do things to not only, or actually specifically not go with the status quo, but move our district to a place where we as a board have decided that we want our district to go, then I would caution us to be very careful that we don't then lose the ability to fill that position with the person that we're going to be deciding to do.
Trustee McMahon?
In agreement with that statement, again, what we've said before, this position is an essential position. It'd be the same argument to be used if we did not have a building principal. We have to have one. If this salary for some reason comes out where we have to make, because the DEP, the balanced line, there's another shortfall, regardless of where it came from, I would accept a friendly amendment that we would have to make, again, an adjustment to compensate and make so forthwith, and find out where that's going to be made up from. But this position needs to be filled promptly, I believe.
So I also think that we have heard from our building administrators and others in our community that this is an important position. As well, it directly ties into our new strategic plan, and not one, not two, but multiple goals. And that's work that needs to be started.
I would certainly add something in here. It says pending successful contract negotiations and review.
Okay.
I would add that. It's important that we have that flexibility to at least see it, and if there's some concerns with the rest. contract, so I think we can make that pretty clear. Is that a friendly amendment?
Excellent.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Nay. We have a roll call, please.
Berga.
No.
Mrs. Mummer.
No.
Mr. McMahon.
Yeah.
I'm in favor, yes.
Mrs. Newland.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey.
Yes.
Mrs. Sanderson.
No.
Okay.
So the motion passes 4-3. Mr. Upton, I want you to know that's not a reflection of your ability. I'm sure that's very uncomfortable for you to sit there through that, but understand that I think as one body, one voice, we do get concerned about where some of the dollars are coming from. But certainly, again, it's not a reflection of your ability. I know that the committee's very excited to have you on board. So welcome aboard. Got a big job.
And Mr. Upton, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Moving on to 11.0 old business. 11.1.1, 11.1.2, may I have a motion, please?
Madam President, I move that we approve the minutes of the August 11th, 2014 board meeting and closed session as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by trustee Gerke with support by trustee Newland. Comments or questions?
Yes. So there was a posted packet that has been updated, and we have that update at our table, is that correct?
You have the updated.
Yeah, and is it, and just for anybody who may have pulled it off the website, is
Yes,
it,
we have been-
it has not been updated there? Okay.
So we have the corrected copy at our table.
Correct.
At our places. Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that it was,
So this has been updated to include the personal transaction summary and reflects all of the appropriate names and individuals. Correct. Okay. Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 11.2, may I have a motion, please?
Madam President, I move that we approve volume 28, number 2, board policy revisions as presented.
Support. It's been moved by trustee Bombard with support by trustee Newland. Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 11.3, may I have a motion, please?
Madam President, I move that we approve revisions to the examination plan provided at the August 11, 2014 board meeting as presented.
Support. It's been moved by trustee Bombard with support by trustee Jaworski. Comments or questions?
With the DEP and with us possibly having items that have been posted to the final figures for the year of 13-14. How accurate, I know you just came on board, how accurate do we, and I know it's a living document too, how much variance might we see in that? Okay, I like honesty.
yes, I agree, I like honesty.
And as we see that impact hit, how are we going to address it? You can do that one kind of general, because you don't know what it's going to do.
Once I have some firm numbers, I'll be making the report available
Trustee McMahon?
Statutorily, if we do not approve this document tonight, we would have to do so before the end of the month.
You need to approve the new DEP within 30 days of the prior budget amendment.
Which then would bring us to what date?
I would need to look at what was the date of the last board meeting and count forward 30.
So could be taken as late as September the 11th.
No. You needed to approve at this board meeting in order to meet the deadline within.
Better July,
Yeah, it is.
28th?
You amended the budget at the last board meeting. Which was the 11th of August. No, yes, the 11th of August. So 30 days from there, I guess, would be
July
September 11th.
Okay. I'm just putting the point is that if we did not do tonight, we're not in a position where we have to do a special meeting on the 31st or something. That's my only question.
From the WDEE-TV studios in Ypsilanti, Michigan, we invite you to tune in for the Michael G. Nastas Show. I'm your host, Michael G. Nastas, and we interview a variety of different folks in our area making a difference, including politicians, musicians, artists, and people who live in our area making a big difference in our community and our lifestyles. Tune in when you can. Anytime, WDEE-TV.com online, sharing Michigan with the world.